I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to those here in the audience and those viewing us at home. We're going to go to item 8 on the agenda to start with, because we were extended our time in executive session. 7:30 p.m. public hearing, modify water restrictions. We have DPW Director.
Read the motion. 1 second. Wherever it sits here. Thank you, appreciate it. Public notice, in accordance with the requirements of section 191-6 of the general bylaws of town of North Reading, the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing to review and act on proposed changes to the rules and regulations governing water use restrictions. This hearing will be held on Monday, May 5th, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. in room 14 of the North Reading Town Hall, 235 North Street, North Reading, Mass. 01864.
Thank you. Mr. Cannavale?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here again to the recommended changes to the water use restrictions. I'll give some of the background again. The town has a Interbasin Transfer Act permit from the Commonwealth to get water from Andover. It's dated 1991. In that permit, we're supposed to have water restrictions, and one of the restrictions called for was mandatory water use restrictions. Number 2, the Interbasin Transfer Act permit itself refers to the Water Resource Commission Water Conservation Standards. That also has conditions like we're proposing. Third, the town's completed a drought management plan through our consultants. One of the recommendations in there is that the town modify our voluntary odd-even restrictions from April 1st through October 1st to a mandatory odd-even. That's based on some days when we are taking water from Andover, we pull in excess of our permitted amount. So that will help us keep within the permitted amount. And there's pending legislation that may or may not affect us about Water Management Act permit. And some advocacy groups have been telling us that potentially our water registration may be conditioned, and this would be one of the conditions they may put on. So that's a maybe. So there are a few permits and existing things that we're currently not in compliance with. The background, 2012, we came forward to update our water rules and regulations, a variety of different things. One thing we asked for is for when we restrict the water to do it via geographical area voting precincts. Unfortunately, most people don't know voting precincts, and it's confusing. So one of the recommendations is to change it from that to an odd-even type scenario. As I mentioned before, our Interbasin Transfer Act permit limits our maximum amount of water per day from Andover to 1.5 million gallons per day. We typically exceed that 15 to 20 times per year in our current, how we do business. Historically, our weekend water use is highest in a predominantly residential community. This holds true for North Reading. Having a day to recover what the wells in the system recover one day is essential, and we're proposing a Monday to do that. Typically, no matter what we do, Saturday and Sunday are the highest water use. So in summary, the 3 things we're asking for are modify the existing water use restrictions to, instead of voluntary odd-even during the summertime, to mandatory, number 1. Number 2, change the language within the existing document from voting precincts to geographical areas or odd-even. And number 3 is to ask them not have any outside water use, lawn irrigation on Mondays. Those are the 3 items. This is also falling in as part of our environmental impact studies and going forward with MWI water. They're going to look closely at how we use our water, what we do and what we don't do. So We're looking at going to all public buildings, do an assessment of what we have for water conservation devices, low-flow toilets, number one. We're looking into the meters. That's probably next year's capital. Our meters are all 20-plus years old for the most part, so the system needs to be updated. Looking at how we manage our water within the system, what's leaking. So this is one piece of several water management tools that'll probably get a lot of visibility with regulatory agencies as we go forward with the trying to get water from MWRA and/or sewer out of the community. And kind of
Questions, comments, board members?
Just a couple of questions. I thought I heard you say April 1st,
what's the language say?
and the document says May 1st.
May 1st, I'm
Through
sorry.
September 30th.
Correct.
Yeah, you are
Is
correct.
this typical? I know this is in the past where it was voluntary, but it would seem to me that we usually don't start running into issues until the earliest I can ever recall is in the late June timeframe.
Most communities, the water use takes off after Memorial Day, which is coming up. But unfortunately, you can't just have it stop. To have it, okay, we have a problem and go deal with it, it's too late at that point. So we're trying to get to a position where people are using all the water they want, but within this allotted schedule. So we're trying to avoid those crises from happening in the future.
No, I understand that. I guess I'm questioning
The May 1st date.
the May 1st date.
It is correct, it is May 1st.
Yeah, he's
May 1st,
questioning.
December 30th.
I'm questioning that too. I thought I
Why?
heard you said April 1st. I'm questioning why May 1st, when typically, and you just said most communities start around Memorial Day.
No, the water use increases Memorial Day. I've seen several communities, I don't know why it's May 1st here.
Some of the DEP generally includes May 1st. It's really a state regulatory thing. They do include May 1st to October 1st in most of their regulations.
Mm-hmm.
You are correct. We typically don't see the water take off till about, as Dick said, Memorial Day. But people do start initiating their sprinkler systems in early May.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Except for this year.
I wait for the snow to melt.
All the rain. And the cold.
I don't have an issue with the odd even, to make it mandatory, or whatever you said, it doesn't, I don't think it really matters, because most people aren't watering a lot in April
Mhm.
or May, so I don't have a problem with that. The issue I have is, I don't know how you're gonna enforce no watering on Monday. I don't know any sprinkler system that you can just say, don't water on Monday. Those that are using a sprinkler system, I
Well.
think, tend to conserve
And-
anyhow, that's why they have the system. Maybe not in some areas, Mark. I just know based upon my own personal experience.
And you're not the only one to come up with that comment. After
Practically,
you
I don't
did
know
this.
how you enforce it, and I don't know how, you just put more of a burden on those that are using a sprinkler
Right.
system, who I think tend to be the ones who do conserve for the most part.
Right.
That's why they have the system.
Oh, that's why they have the system. I think they have the system because they made a huge investment in their lawn and they want to keep it alive, you know, which is not necessarily conducive to conservation. You know,
I guess
what it
that's
has,
the
what
way I
it
use
has is
mine.
a timer, you know, as opposed to, you know, leaving your sprinkler running or with the hand watering yourself, but
When we did propose that, you are correct, we had several people with similar comments, like, my system can't do that. So it could be that particular recommendation might not be feasible.
That's the only
Right.
objection I have to it. There's no watering
well,
on
I don't have any irrigation systems. I don't know how those timers work, or is it just 24-hour clock on it and on and off?
Just-
It
There's
depends
all
on
different
how much you
kinds
pay
of
for the system.
That's how you
Yeah.
pay for the system, okay.
I can set it on different day cycles, it could be every day, every other day, every 3 days, every 5 days, I can program it.
Individual days.
Can't,
I mean,
I don't think I can exclude Mondays.
we can send out information
It's all
with the water bills, but I know that historically, if you look at the days that we had the lowest water levels in the tanks, they're always Mondays. And they're always as a result of weekends where people did a lot of watering. So I see this practice actually in other communities in my hometown, they have the same practice in place, odd even, and no watering on Mondays. And I actually see it around it, I don't know if it's something that comes through DEP or not, but I've seen it in place in other towns similar to what we suggest. But I can verify that in fact Mondays are are the most difficult day for the tank recovery. And I certainly endorse what Dick and Mark are trying to accomplish.
Yeah, the intent is good, just again, every system is different.
So we're
I've
from-
seen some systems are timers, some actually are like a calendar, you can program it. It depends on your sophistication. So it's, unfortunately, it might be difficult to enforce with some people's equipment.
And if we're going from a voluntary to a mandatory, I mean, that's a huge step for us right there.
Hmm.
Do you think it may make sense to try that, and if it doesn't work, come back
That's fine.
next year?
No,
Until you need a Monday?
that's fair.
That's what I would suggest. That's just me.
Yeah, we can strike that for now.
Mr. Foden? Well, it's just me, so I don't.
Well, it just, yes,
My
sir.
question is, how's it gonna be regulated to begin with? I mean, regardless of whether you're doing Mondays or not, but odd even. Because we had a situation several years ago, we had no watering at all, and, you know, I was on the water commission at the time, and Mark and I had a discussion about the fact that there was no regulation going on at all, and
Right. As you know, currently, these laws are regulated by the police department, and frankly, the police have better things to do, chasing down criminals and whatnot, than enforcing this. So one potential thing to look at is maybe changing who can enforce this from
That was
the
nice.
police to another department, the building inspector, water commissioner, or something like that. So I've seen other communities do that.
that's not recommended here. How come, why wouldn't you just recommend that with these changing?
Is that a town meeting thing? I think it's a great point, Joe. I'm just not sure to change.
I believe it is, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, just an oversight. I think that's an excellent point.
Anyone else, board members? Anyone from the public, like to comment, question? No? Commissioner O'Leary?
I mean, obviously, I think it's something we need to implement and consider strongly, just because of the lack of volume that's available to us. And again, I think, depending upon what happens with Andover, people will start restricting themselves anyway, because the cost is gonna be extremely prohibitive. We're talking about a significant cost, rising cost of water to the town of North Reading, and I don't know exactly what the impact's gonna be, but as far as how much we purchase from Andover, with a 15+% increase in
Right.
water costs from Andover, what percentage of our water is from Andover now?
2/3.
2/3 of our water.
Yes, sir.
From Andover. So people can anticipate a substantial jump in the cost of water.
Well, we'd have to increase the rates. Our rates.
How is he gonna cover it?
Pay based upon what we understood the accepted rate was.
Oh, I know that this board has taken that action, and we'll probably end up in litigation on that, but that's okay. I'm more than happy to litigate that one. But the fact still remains that, even with that, we're talking about increased costs, but the substantial increased costs that, if we're not successful, or they decide to take some of the draconian measures and turn the tap down as far as availability, what are we gonna do? In addition to that, I think it's just a question of volume. What do we have? What do we have available, and how are we gonna curtail it? Enforcement's always been a problem. I think initially, if we're going to go to mandatory, as opposed to whatever else we were doing before, we probably do need the police department involved initially, and then as it transitions forward, take the burden off of the police department and transition it to DPW or water department specifically. Again, not a popular issue to have to discuss or even consider, but the problem isn't gonna go away. I think we need to address it. I don't think we can continue to ignore it, and the only way that can be addressed is through some type of mandatory, fair, and equitable distribution and use of the water. So odd even, makes sense. Monday is the day that's needed for recovery, and the facts are what they are. So unfortunately, I think we need to take some positive step to ensure that we have adequate water supply for the essential needs of the community, not the least of which is fire protection. So that's what's at risk.
One tool we do have to help us as part of the draft environmental impact reports, we are scrubbing every water account and identifying every property in town on a well. We never really had an exact count, and we're 95% there. So we have a more exacting of who has an irrigation well, who has a well, and 100% off the town system. So as opposed to seeing everybody with a lawn and watering have to deal with it, we can now by property address distinguish. So I think we have that 95% product right now. That's one tool that will help us. And what have we done before is a lot of public education, signboards everywhere. Maybe something simple what Danvers has. If you ever go to town of Danvers and Middleton, they have those signboards. We might have to have those up in key locations.
Middleton seems to have them up all year round.
Yeah, but they have different levels.
Different levels, but.
Right. Middleton gets water from Danvers. Danvers has a water management act permit. They're one of the few communities that actually kept it, and they settled with the state. So they have relatively restrictive water use restrictions. That's why you see that everywhere in Danvers and Middleton. They kind of chose to go down that route.
So,
We have two ex-water commissioner members here. One here, one
I
there.
haven't heard one thing you've said here. You have to speak up. You have to speak up, you guys. We don't hear.
No, that microphone is for the,
TV only.
No, we have speakers here that are put in the ceiling. For some reason, they're never activated by the people running the cable TV. They should be turned up so people can hear it. There's 4 speakers in the ceiling right here. I'm looking at them. So the dial needs to be turned up.
Carol, we're looking for 3 things. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
We're looking just for 3 things. One is to, instead of voluntary, odd even during the summertime, make it mandatory, number 1. Number 2,
I'm not on the commission anymore.
well, you're here as an interested citizen, so I'm trying to let you know what we're saying.
Okay.
The second one is to get rid of the restriction based on voting precincts and turn it into actually addresses, simpler to implement, and possibly not have a Monday water use, or ban Monday water use. Those 3 things we're looking for.
To address the exact issue people are complaining about. 1, 2, 3, 4.
anything further?
For me.
Thank you, Mr. Cannavale. Anyone else, the public, wish to comment, question? Anything?
Not even the garden club?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm done. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in accordance with Town Bylaw 191-6, I move to modify the water use restrictions approved by the Board of Selectmen on June 18, 2012 as follows. 1, change the May 1 to September 30th voluntary odd-even water conservation schedule to mandatory odd-even water conservation schedule. 2, change the existing water use restrictions for drought stage 1 and 2 from voting precincts to specific days of the week. And 3, change the existing water use restrictions to not allow any outside water use on Mondays for any drought stage.
Second?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a motion, we have a second.
Did I second it?
Any further discussion? My issue is the Monday complete restriction. Sure. I don't think it should be part of this phase. So I'll be voting against this particular motion.
Welcome to drop it if that's a consensus of the board. You are right, we can try the first 2 and see what happens. So
All in favor of the motion?
Well, do we want to...
Well, are you asking to modify the
Do you
motion?
want to modify?
I didn't make the motion, huh?
I can, if the
I don't know
consensus
what
is to
the-
do that, then I can modify.
That's why I thought we were having a
I was
discussion.
the only one that spoke against it, so.
No, I was waiting for us to get to the
Oh.
point where we could discuss it, because I agree with you. There's no way logically we could go ahead and police this. We know that. I think if we could have a voluntary Monday, ask people voluntarily not water on Mondays, is probably about the best we can do. I think that's probably the more logical thing to do in this case, maybe eliminate it altogether. You know, we've always we always ask them to volunteer to water on odd and even house address numbers, so I think this is a logical step. That's my proposal. I'd like to modify the motion to just, don't make it mandatory, but make it a voluntary.
You know, I've looked at the signs in Middleton, past couple of years when we've run into these things, and they have different levels, and they post them based on it. So from my perspective, if it's raining all the time, we don't have a watering issue, no matter what. And it would seem maybe that we could build upon this before we just jump off and say, okay, we don't need to restrict Monday unless we get to level 4 or something. And you know, put a plan together that way so that people can do as much as the system can basically handle. That works for us too, because when we totally restrict water usage, right, and we talk about that, we restrict revenue, which causes the rates to go up even higher. So I'm all for coming up with a balanced plan. And maybe we ought to go bring us back to the drawing board and draw up something that would provide a little more flexibility when it's not necessary. Rather than just say, we're restricting water from May 1st to October 1st. Just thoughts.
No, go ahead, you go for it.
It's restricting, but it's not allowing people, I mean, people still have the ability to water their lawns. If they're watering more than 3 times a week, you know, then they could be doing more harm to their lawn than actually helping it. So, I mean, if the consensus is to take out the restrictions for Mondays, I mean, I'm okay with moving forward with it.
It's the odd even, you're not limiting
Correct.
how much they can water.
Correct.
On an odd or an even day.
Okay.
House number they are. You're just saying that you only can do odd or even.
Correct.
So are we
So-
drawing half as,
But realistically, the right way to lawn is you shouldn't be watering every day anyway.
Right.
If you're a healthy lawn, you should be doing it, you know, you should only be giving,
3 or less.
right,
Well,
thank you.
inch.
Tuna fish can,
Yeah.
or less, a week.
Good, Mark.
Quick comment. I think what we're trying to avoid, we got to a point last summer, and I think 3 of you might remember, we had that emergency
Yeah.
meeting.
Oh,
where,
yeah.
you know, it didn't take long. We had a fairly wet spell, and then all of a sudden it tripped over to hot 90-degree days. And it was after about 9 days of that, we were extremely concerned. So we called in and asked, can we implement mandatory restrictions, you know, kick it up a notch? And someone, it might have been you, Mr. Chair, that made the recommendation, look, why don't you wait 1 more day, there's a forecast for some showers coming in, and sure enough, that next day it rained. And, you know, 1 good day of rain, it helps us recover huge, and I think that's kind of the philosophy behind the Monday off. That kind of gives us, even if it doesn't rain for 2 weeks, it gives us that time to recover. So that's why we've included that in the,
Thank you.
Mark,
Mr. Fogg?
if you could, I mean, Mr. Carnevale always gave us his opinion. I think he thought we could live without the Mondays off for now. What's your opinion?
I just have a concern that things do tend to get
Bad.
quickly, bad in a quick way around here. It's just, I mean, we can see it coming. How quick can we get the word out that, you know, we need to go from voluntary Monday no watering to actual Monday mandatory no watering? I agree with you, Joe. It's an enforcement issue. We don't have the ability to do that. You know, we do have a much better means of getting the message out there now that we have the reverse 911 system. But you know, we're going back just a couple of years when we were, you know, literally going door to door and putting notices on anyone we suspected was sprinkling. You know, nice bright orange piece of paper on their door.
Mr. Prisco?
I disagree with starting over at this point. I think this is a good starting point. I would hope that we could at least modify the motion to get through a vote tonight, and then continue to proceed with other options that we could vote in at a later time. But to do nothing tonight, I think it would be really a waste of all the hard effort that's already been done. And I think these restrictions that are in here outside of the Monday, I think are gonna be valuable, at least some assistance to working towards what the water department said. So, I mean, I understand what you're trying to accomplish, Bob, and I think that's maybe an action item we should give them, to go back and look at those other restrictions or these tiers that you were just referencing, that maybe you want to go to that approach. That's fine, but I would hope that we vote on this tonight with some modification.
Did you make a motion to amend?
Well, I made a motion to amend the Monday from mandatory to voluntary. That was my motion. But if there is
I don't know if I have a second on that.
but I'm willing to at least have the conversation to just eliminate the Monday restriction altogether and leave the rest as written, if that's what the majority of the board desires. I'm flexible either way.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, but you shouldn't say that in public.
Break, I have a couple more hours left. I've been confused for 6 years. Why should it change now? If you're making a motion to amend and make it voluntary, I think it ends up being voluntary because it's something that they end up implementing. If we have to go to a higher level tier, if we run into problems, then they'll come in and tell us, okay, this is what we're gonna propose because of water shortage. Mondays have to be non-voluntary at that point. I don't think it's part of this.
If you look to the higher stress levels, I think we're down to what's the next step up, Mark?
The second stage actually eliminates Monday and Thursday. It would eliminate Thursday. It would be
Yeah.
2 days.
2 days a week you get to
Right.
water, as opposed to 3. And then the next step after that will be 1 time per week. And then the next step after that is no outside watering at all. And I think we've been somewhere in the 1 a week to nothing outside a couple times since I've been here. We kind of go from voluntary up to extreme. So we're trying to not have that rapid change. And our system's like that. Our system just goes takes off within 24 hours. We've had our engineers look at all the data and see if they can graph and chart and predict, and it's so many different factors that it's hard to get that and say, okay, we know in 2 days this is going to happen based on all these other things.
So basically, what you're saying, as soon as you reach the crossover, the withdrawal from the tanks is in excess of our ability to fill them, then we're in trouble.
Every day has up and downs, but
Well, I can understand the
sometimes it's
buffering, but, you know, it's like
Yeah.
a big capacitor. But it would seem to me that if in fact, as Mark says, that the weekends are the biggest draw, and having a day off on Monday is a good recovery plan, then you know, maybe we all can
Right.
live with that.
So maybe it's a suggestion. I think I didn't even think of
agree.
voluntary.
I also agree that trying to get people into that kind of a routine and enforce it is another issue, but, and it's really all about enforcement anyway.
When I suggested dropping the Monday altogether, I didn't think of making it voluntary. That might be a compromise. Striking it all together, making it, voluntary if you choose to on Monday at this point.
I mean, we should encourage the community to not water on Mondays. And I know the technology may not be there, so there'd be some manual effort on their part, but we could try to encourage it. It definitely is for the greater good, so that's about all we can do. That's realistic.
Do I have a second on Mr. Briscoe's motion?
Can I hear the motion again, Mr. Prisco, please?
Are you confused?
No?
I'd like to modify
Proposal.
the proposal to change the mandatory Monday no watering to a voluntary no watering on Mondays.
I'll second it, just for the purpose of discussion and have a vote. I'm not convinced that voluntary is gonna do anything, to be honest. I think if you allow them to do it, they'll do it. I think you either gotta say no or yes, and that's it. But
You can say no, but you're not going to, how are you going to enforce it?
Right.
Well, Enforcement's a whole separate issue.
No, I know, but
I mean, you're not gonna be able to enforce any of the days if there's no enforcement, you know,
And
if
basically, you're not gonna go out of your way to, enforce it unless
unless it's needed.
need. I mean, that's the bottom line, right?
Make Mark a reserve police officer.
But deputized.
As long as he gets a gun.
Deputy Doug, Mr. Prisco.
No, the reason why I suggested being voluntary is that it gives us the opportunity now to encourage it in the community. If we do nothing and don't have anything in our restrictions at all associated with Monday, then they're gonna continue on with what we have going on right now, which we already know is a problem. So that's the only reason why I'm suggesting voluntary. It just gives us an opportunity to get the word out in the transcript and in the water bills and, express why we asked to be voluntary, how important it is. That's the only reason why.
Anything further? Mr. Rowley?
I tend to agree with Mr. Fode that, either we're gonna do it or we're not. I mean, I think enforcement is a separate issue. And I think watering your lawn 3 days a week should be sufficient. We have a problem. We need to address it. And I think if you allow it to be voluntary, the vast majority of people will probably choose to continue to water their lawn, So it's, to me, I think the message that we would send, as far as the seriousness of the issue, would be sent with the mandatory non-Monday watering. And that's sending the message. So, well, I appreciate the effort to compromise. And again, if this amendment is successful, I'll support the whole thing as amended, but I don't think I want to support the amendment at this time.
Okay. Wants to say anything further on the motion as amended? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
No. You made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were, I'm sorry.
You made the motion.
I'm sorry,
No.
I forgot I got a second.
Too late.
My bad. I didn't think I got a
Don't worry,
second.
anyhow, no matter what you do. Who's confused?
And you thought the chairman was.
I'm confused.
Motion carries. I didn't realize I got a second.
Never mind. All right.
I didn't
Oh my
hear him
God.
say he seconded. I'm sorry.
What?
Yeah, he seconded for the.
I was
previous
reading, I
Why
was
do you
reading
think,
the
what do you think we
restrictions.
voted on?
I thought we were voting on the original motion.
On the
I
main
said,
My
I said on the motion as amended. On the main motion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
3-2, motion
Thank you.
carries.
Oh, sorry.
I shouldn't have been reading, my apologies.
All right, the poor garden club. We're
We'll
back to
forgive
that.
it.
So wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
The original motion.
Original motion.
Original motion with the mandatory Monday
Monday.
pass.
3
We
to 2.
confused you too.
Yes.
3 to 2.
Accomplished it, I did it.
Thank you.
That's what I wanted to
See,
do. That's
that's
the goal of the
confusing.
evening, Bob.
I was confused.
Who voted for
Who voted for the motion?
it? I did.
Steve,
I did.
Joe, and Bob.
Joe, you gotta speak up over there. I couldn't even hear you over here.
I can speak up because he didn't vote very well. Thank you, John.
One of the more heady issues.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Good decision.
I'm gonna go to item 7, meet with
Mondays are
Garden Club,
historically a
Blue Star Memorial Marker at Ipswich River Park. Ladies, welcome. Sorry you had to sit through that.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm Judy Colburn, and this is Charlene Mallard,
How are you?
and we are co-presidents of the North Reading Garden Club. We're here tonight to present to you a proposal for the North Reading Garden Club to sponsor a Blue Star Memorial Byway Marker at Ipswich River Park. The North Reading Garden Club was organized in 1956 with the purpose to further the advancement of gardening, to develop home grounds, and to cooperate in civic betterment. Since that time, the club has sponsored many civic beautification projects in our town, including the Welcome to North Reading sign, the Adopt an Island program, and the 18th century herb garden at the Daniel Putnam House. Our most recent project in the fall of 2013 was the installation of a perennial garden at Ipswich River Park and the planting of 450 daffodils within this garden and around the trees lining the walkway to the garden. Our garden is at the intersection of the Circle Walkway by the Ipswich River.
As a member of the Garden Club Federation of Massachusetts in the National Garden Club, we would like to participate in the Blue Star Memorial Project. The Garden Club Federation of Massachusetts has asked every club in the state to sponsor a memorial marker. The Blue Star Memorial Highway Marker Program was started in 1944, and the first marker was designed in 1947 to honor World War II veterans. In 1951, it enlarged its mission to include all men and women who had served, were serving, or who would serve in the armed forces of the United States. In 1981, a smaller byway marker to be placed in areas such as parks, civic and historical grounds was approved, and in 1994, the marker was changed to be more descriptive by including the words, "A tribute to the Armed Forces of America." We would like to have our Blue Star Memorial Byway marker placed in an area along the walkway near our garden at the Ipswich River Park. It would be mounted on a flat side of a large stone and would read, "Blue Star Memorial Byway, a tribute to the Armed Forces of America, the North Reading Garden Club, National Garden Clubs." We are here tonight to ask for your authorization and support so we can start fundraising for this project. We are hoping local businesses and organizations will help with funding. The cost of the marker is approximately $450 plus additional funds for the stone and installation. After the marker has been placed, the Garden Club will install a small planting at the site, which we will maintain. We thank you tonight for this time and consideration of this project. And I'd like to share this with you. This one for each, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I want to thank you and thank the Garden Club for proposing this. I think it's a terrific idea. Not enough can be done for those that serve in our armed forces as far as I'm concerned. So I wholeheartedly support this endeavor.
Thank you.
Is there more that you want to say? I'm sorry. I think I
The picture that you see there is a rendition similar to what we would propose to have at the park. And we would be working with Marty Tilton in terms of the location, specific location, as we have worked very closely with him for the redesign of our garden there and the planting of the 450 daffodil bulbs.
I was going to answer a question, but you just answered it.
Anyone else, board
No,
members?
it's great, it's great.
Great.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous idea, and again, for all your contributions to date. And again, I don't know how long you've been members, the two of you.
1975.
That's it.
And how long?
Charlene?
I think 1986 is when I joined.
Yeah.
And we have both served previously as presidents in several board positions, and we decided this year to be co-presidents to continue with civic endeavors for the town.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate your efforts, and this is another terrific undertaking, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. Yeah, absolutely.
Same.
Thank you for proposing it.
Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Fogarty,
Good luck.
you have a motion?
There isn't, but I'll come up with one. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the request of the Garden Club to install a Blue Star Memorial Byway marker to be placed along the area of the walkway near the garden at the Ipswich River Park.
There's a motion
Second?
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Nice
you.
Good
job.
evening. Anyone here for public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi.
I'm Bill Monahan from 1 Damon Street. I'm here about the Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company that's been in our neighborhood for about a month, going door to door, basically badgering the neighbors of Damon Street and Metis Farm Lane. They've been to some houses 4 and 5 times, trying to get us to sign a petition, not a petition,
An easement.
Authorization to
yeah,
enter
you.
on your property?
To survey our land. None of us on Damon Street are interested in the Tennessee Gas Pipeline. We don't want them coming to our house. We don't want them sending us letters. This last letter that they sent us, if I have a minute to read it.
Certainly.
We received it about 6 days ago. I know we spoke to Mr. Valukunis, and he called them and asked them to stop contacting us. It says, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Monahan, Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company, LLC, Tennessee, is in the process of contacting landowners in your community regarding the proposed expansion of a natural gas transmission system to be constructed, operated, and maintained by Tennessee to meet the increasing demand for clean-burning natural gas in northeastern United States. Tennessee has sought your permission to survey your property, but to date you have not consented to the survey request. It is Tennessee's preference and intent to continue to work with each landowner that has not consented to the survey without having to petition the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities as provided under Chapter 164, Section 72A, 75B, and 75D for in order to enter your property to perform the requested surveys. Tennessee is requesting permission to perform the following surveys on your property: civil surveys which identify the boundaries of the corridor for all other surveys, obtain an accurate description of existing features, and locate the alignment for the proposed pipeline. Geotechnical surveys, archaeological surveys, wetland and stream surveys, and surveys for rare, threatened, or endangered species. The information obtained from these surveys will be included in Tennessee's application to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and to other federal and state agencies. Tennessee remains hopeful that you will allow us the opportunity to continue to work with you through this survey request process and that you will agree to allow this survey. Tennessee prefers the one-to-one relationship and direct communication with you regarding its survey request rather than pursuing the Mass DPU process. So I take that as kind of a threatening letter that if we don't allow them on our property, which I'm never going to allow them on my property, that they're going to try and take it or get a court order to come on my property. I'm under the assumption that this is a private company, isn't it? Tennessee Natural Gas Pipeline Company?
That's my understanding, yeah.
So what authority do they have to do any of this?
My understanding, first of all, I apologize for the fact that I had stepped out for a second. I just want to let you know that I've been in contact with the gas pipeline representatives, and they've agreed to hold an informational hearing here in Town Hall on June 3rd.
Okay.
So June 3rd at 7 p.m., the gas pipeline representatives will be out, and they would like to have an informational hearing for all North Reading residents who are interested in hearing about the project. So it's not formally required. My understanding is their authority is given to them through the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the Mass DPU in terms of permitting. So their permitting is on both the federal with the FERC, or Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and the DPU on the state level. And my understanding is their appeals and their petitions for access to property and rights to property to construct this pipeline are through those two agencies. But that process only takes place further down the road after a number of hearings and petitions and such that are filed. You correctly stated our conversation. What I said to the gas company is, I can't recommend that anyone that contacts the administration office sign any waivers or any consents until a hearing is held. The town has been asking for a hearing since this project was originally brought to our attention back a couple of months ago. I understood that the representatives were not going to go out and contact citizens until they had an opportunity to provide us with a map that depicted the detailed location of this pipeline, and that has not been provided to date. And furthermore, I understand that this phase of the project is contingent upon Phase 1 from the New York State border up to Drake being constructed, and this would in fact be Phase 2. So I was a little bit surprised that after that hearing, they proceeded to go out an hour later and start knocking on doors.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did.
And to go to people's houses 4 or 5 times after they said no 1, 2, 3 times and keep coming back, to the point that one of my neighbors was afraid to let her little kids play out in the front yard because this guy's parked in front of her house.
This is what I would do. I would call the police. Next time they come to your neighborhood, just call the police department. Yeah. I think this company's gone about this completely wrong. They should have come to us and said, we want to do an informational hearing. That should have been their approach, not the approach they've taken. I think it's terrible, the approach that they've gone about. My reading of that letter, well, my interpretation of that letter is that they want to try to do this the easy way.
Right.
It's going to be much more time-consuming and costly for them if they have to go to DEP to get it. They'll probably end up getting it that way, but they're looking to do it the easy way, even though they haven't gone about this the right way. But hopefully it's going to start with the informational session. Mr. Fode?
Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mr. O'Leary brought it up at the last meeting. If they're soliciting door to door, are they still registered with the police department anyway?
I don't know if they come in under the category that would have to, because they're not soliciting to sell.
Products or
Something.
services.
So,
But they're still going door to door
No,
soliciting, they should be registered. So people,
Go ahead.
so we know I mean, especially,
I
like
agree
you
with
said,
you.
if there's a gentleman parking in front of someone's home,
Yeah.
and, or even going to someone's door, if a call's made to the police department, they can turn around and say, minimally, at least we're aware of it. We know, yeah, that gentleman's registered with us, this is what he's doing. Doesn't mean you have to let him in, but at least they're acknowledging the fact that they know he's in town.
I just don't believe they're required to. I
don't-
understand where you're coming from.
Sir-
They should be, but I don't think they are required.
Did you
to.
state who signed that letter? Who's that letter from that
I
you?
think it's from
just-
Keenan Bryn.
Okay, that's the same person who's come to the town.
It's not, actually. It's from James D. Hartman, but it has Keenan Bryn's name.
Right.
And phone number on here.
Right.
They've sent us about 4 letters already trying to gain access to our property. We have no interest.
Just so you know, the town owns significant land that abuts against the easement also. And I've been asked to sign documents similar to what you have and indicated flat out that until a hearing is held and people are apprised about what the project involves, there's no reason to sign anything. And again, I'm surprised that they still continue to send letters based upon the conversations that I've had with them.
What benefit would the town get from a natural gas pipeline that, to my understanding, is not delivering natural gas to North Reading? Would there be any financial gain for the town?
It's possible that the pipeline would be subject to taxation, and as a result, the town could receive some tax revenue from it. Alternatively, the town could receive mitigation funds resulting from the project that it could use toward public safety and such. But that would be it, as I understand it. The first comment was North Reading would have availability to gas, and I informed that, in fact, we already have gas available
Right.
to us.
Even though the gas company isn't expanding their lines, but.
Right.
Mr.
Right.
Misery?
Yeah, I agree. Don't sign anything at this point. I mean, it's just totally absurd to be asked to sign something before you really understand what they're doing and where they're doing it. And then you can make at least a proper decision as to what you want to do.
I made my decision already.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
heard that.
just-
But all I'm saying is that, I know Greg has battled with them just to get this hearing scheduled, so we all get a better understanding, including a map of exactly what their plan is. You asked the question of how it might benefit the whole region.
Right.
Is that, you've heard about water loops, when you have water main that's tied into places. Well, this would, in addition to providing extra gas into the neighborhood, they're trying to bring gas up into the New Hampshire area and further north, but it would also tie into an existing supply, creating some redundancy.
I've read a fair amount about it online, and I thought I read something that they were looking to take the gas to overseas.
That I haven't heard.
Is that right? Yeah, you read that too. I've got a picture in front of me on my wife's iPad that's, I don't think it's funny, but it's a picture of the end of Damon Street, and there's a sign that was erected last year there, and it says, "Protected wetland, no dumping." And it's because people were dumping leaves there. If people can't dump their biodegradable leaves in this area, how could we have a 500 PSI natural gas pipeline that would be running through the Ipswich River, which you guys were just talking about our water. That's where we're getting our water, or some of it, isn't it?
Some of it, third of it.
Third of it. So why would we want a 500 PSI gas line running through our river, which
Well,
is our water supply?
As Mr. Misery says, we don't even have a map to show us
Yeah.
where exactly this line's going to go to start
Okay.
with, and that's one of the things the town wants to see at this public hearing.
Okay.
Where does the line go from one end of the town to the other? We want to see it.
Okay, well, I guess we're here because I think it wouldn't be good for our neighborhood. I don't think it would be good for our town. And I personally, and along with all my neighbors, don't want a 500 PSI natural gas pipeline within 200 feet of where I sleep at night, or where my neighbors' kids play, or I'm sure we've all seen on the internet the aftermath of a natural gas pipeline explosion, where it takes out a whole neighborhood, or it takes out a whole highway, an eight-lane highway. It's not pretty. I can't see any reason why we'd want it in North Reading.
I just encourage you and all your neighbors to come out to the public hearing.
Yeah.
Do I have that?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lamb.
Yeah, Bill, you left a message at my house, a month or so ago, a month and a half ago, and at that point, the notification had just started to circulate, where people like yourselves were being contacted, and other members of the board were contacted too, I assume. We immediately, got to the town administrator and asked him to find out what was going on, and reached out, again, in an attempt to have a public hearing early on in the process, and there was just little or no response or appetite on their part to do so. And again, at this meeting, previous meetings, we've reiterated several times, don't sign anything until we know what the story is. I'm still not sure exactly whether or not we can do anything to stop it. I'm not so sure, because it's the federal government and state government that are involved in the process. But we certainly can be critical of the way that they've handled the situation, the way that they are going to your neighbors and yourself and other neighborhoods, and they're basically trying to bully people into signing these authorizations to allow them to survey your property. Again, it's not a good idea without full information and disclosure as to exactly what the process is, what role can we play. We collectively instruct the town administrator, don't sign away any of the town's rights in relation to surveying or anything else. So it's with great interest that I await this public hearing, and hopefully they show.
Would they be taking part of the town's land by eminent domain?
No, I don't believe there's going to be taking any land, is it? Just probably an easement.
An easement.
Probably an easement.
Again, we've asked continuously for a map that shows, and what I've been told is it'll follow the power transmission lines before they enter in Wilmington, down behind Park Street, and then proceed out through Haverhill Street into Reading. And we'll follow that easement throughout.
Didn't I read in the transcript once that you wanted to do something with solar panels down there or something behind the town barn?
Sure, gas-fired solar panels. I'm only kidding.
I knew you were.
Our conversations have been as difficult with these people as they've been with you, and we apologize for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything we can do as a board here in order to get some relief for these neighbors and residents as far as the harassment is taking place. Again, I don't know if we can go to court on their behalf to get some sort of a restraining order against them to continue to harass these people, or come into our community, and whether it's this neighborhood or Mentis Farm Lane or anybody else that they're going to touch along the way, some other people on Route 28.
I think it's going to run by Cold Spring Road and down that neighborhood
That's
down
where
the
it
end
is.
of Linwood.
Right. So, so we have a number of neighborhoods that are impacted here, and I just think that, they're unfettered, I don't know what you'd call it, audacity to come in here and continue to harass people and try and convince them to sign off just to get rid of them. I think that's just a tactic that they're using. We should be able to offer some sort of assistance or protection. Again, I don't know, we've got an answer from the police department if they would qualify under the bylaw, if we could get that. Then I would think that if there's any type of liberal interpretation to have the police department exercise their authority in restricting their ability to continually going through these neighborhoods, knocking on these people's doors, we should ask them to do that. If we can't, short of that, then maybe we should talk about some other action if we could. Again, I don't think it would take much in the way of time or resources to go to district court and say, hey, listen, tell them stay out until they follow some proper protocol here.
Well, I don't know of the mechanism to do so. I think if anything, it would be in the Superior Court. And I don't know if we'd have any standing to go in on behalf of.
We could say town of North Reading and others, that's all, right?
suppose you can say whatever you want and then let the chips fall where they may, but as I sit here, I can't think of a mechanism for the town to go in on behalf of the neighborhood to do so. What you could do, you could respond to that letter by saying, this is a no trespass order, don't come on my property, again, to make any sort of request.
I've been advised by my attorney not to give them anything with my signature on it, because that could be used for something else. So I have given them absolutely nothing.
Okay.
So you've given them a verbal no thank you.
Nothing, yeah.
In your letter, was it a state statute or federal regulation you had referenced? Whatever it is, I think it would be helpful if we actually got a copy of that, so we could look at it, or even maybe have town council
You
look
dropped
at
the letter
it.
off.
Because I believe that in that, it probably gives you some understanding of what their authority is, and what they could actually do, if eminent domain is one of the options. I would be curious to see what
That phrase was used to one of my neighbors that actually owns the land under the pipeline.
Could you read again, what is it again? Is it a state, or is it federal?
It's provided under chapter
164.
164, section 72A, 75B, and 75D, for an order to enter your property to perform requested surveys.
Mass General Law.
Petition the
Mass General Law.
Massachusetts Department of Public
Let's get an
Utilities.
interpretation from town council and see if they actually have
That would
that
be
authority,
helpful.
have the right to go do that, what the mechanism is that they
Right.
need to exercise in order to go do it.
Right.
And my guess is if it's a hurdle, they're not looking to go over that hurdle
Right.
yet.
It would be
Trying
good
to
that we
do it
had that
decently,
understanding.
Greg,
Least
do you have
expensive.
copies of the letters the citizens have received?
I only have a copy of a letter that's not as strongly worded as yours is, by the way. My letter simply says we seek permission to enter onto property for the purposes of conducting surveys. One
Okay.
letter.
Correct.
Do you have a copy
Non-friendly.
of that letter that you're reading from?
If we have a copy machine here at Town Hall,
Mr.
we
Valley,
can make one
possibly-
tonight.
Yeah, we can make copies of that, sure.
Okay.
We'd be happy to. Upon conclusion of this section of the meeting, I'll scoot out and make copies of
Great.
it.
I could scan it too if you want, and I can email it to you.
This is a copy of a petition, one of the petitions that's been circulated. I believe we already sent you one via email, all of you.
A couple weeks ago, right?
That's a different one. The one they have is from Damon Street, this is from general.
Right. Yeah, this is the general town.
Okay.
Yes, that's in addition to the petition that we already sent you via email.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me the time to speak. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Sorry you have to put up with this.
I hope it gets off.
Me too.
I hope they'll
Very-
go away and find another route.
And once we get a read from
I
our
don't
legal
think it's gonna be
counsel on
easy,
that,
Unfortunately.
on that law, we'll hopefully be able to circle back with you and give you what we learn.
Okay,
I'm curious to know.
thank you.
And any other correspondence you may receive, or any of the neighbors down there, which is different from that, forward it to the town administrator's office, so we can again forward it to town council, so that we'll have a better understanding when they come in here, what our standing will be in relation to any hearing process that may be required or at the state and federal level.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for taking the time.
Go to item 6, sign the June town meeting warrant.
Can I just make a comment?
Oh, sure.
Can the federal government just come in and decide that that's, like, there are vernal ponds there are marked campsites of the Wampanoag Indians, the Ipswich River is there, there are quite a few, what were the other environmental impacts, conservation land? Can they just come in and just disregard all of those things that have been labeled and held by North Reading as something to behold?
Federal
And they
government.
just come in and say, this is where the pipeline's going, there's all these Wampanoag Indian campsites from the archaeologists that were out there marked, and, conservation land and Ipswich River, they can just disregard all of that and slam a pipeline in there?
Federal government can do what they wish, unfortunately.
But I think it's important that we learn what's referenced in that letter of where their power is. We should learn,
Well, I find it interesting that we circulated our petition. There were 4 environmental things in that petition. And then their latest letter to us lists those 4 things. I really just read it out loud, it lists those 4 things. And another thing I find interesting is they sent us, I mean, this is not, I just feel like they know more than we think they know.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
The letter's addressed to Katie. My name's Kathleen. Only people that know me know my name's Katie. He's William in the letter. How do they know that I'm Katie? So I think they know a lot more than what we think they know.
That's a fair assumption. But the more issues that you can identify as to make this very difficult,
Yeah.
the better off
Yeah.
you and your neighbors are going to be.
It just, I mean, it's striking to me, we're discussing the water and people's investment in their green lawns. But what about our investment in our homes? And the value
I
of
agree
our
with you.
homes
I
And the
agree.
safety of our homes.
Yeah, no, you're doing the right thing.
What
I agree.
green grass.
No doubt.
Thank you.
You have the letter that Mr. Valiakonis is going to leave a copy of, correct? Cool. Do we have the warrant to sign?
Mr. Chairman, I move to sign the June 2nd, 2014 town meeting warrant.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Mr. Footy, will that's being circulated, the minutes for April 9th, 2014, regular session?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the April 9, 2014 regular session minutes as written.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Executive session for the same meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the April 9, 2014 executive session minutes as written.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. April 22nd, 2014, regular session.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the April 22nd, 2014 regular session minutes as written.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Executive session for the same meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the April 22nd, 2014 executive session minutes as written.
Second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Legal bills for March 2014.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve legal bills for March 2014 in the amount as follows. Copeland and Page General, $2,631.27. Copeland and Page Labor, $3,852. Richard Belanger, Arbitrator, $2,857, for a total of $9,340.27.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Wait a moment, Mr. Valiakonis. If anyone would like to have a cookie, feel free, come on up. Mrs. Prisco baked them. It's my swan song, I guess.
He's going away cookie.
They're very good. Multiple times I tried all three, yes.
I'll have a peanut butter one. Throw it to me.
No. Mr. and Mrs. Jones? This is dessert. Ms. Paveo? You sure? I know you want a cookie. It's take a while to fire up that copy machine.
Yeah, that's why I could have scanned it.
You get all the toys, I'm sorry. You should already scan it. We're done by now.
Just trying to save time.
What app are you using?
Turbo scan?
Oh, while we're waiting.
Enjoy your last cookie.
Can we do the Candlewood Lanes thing, or did we already do that?
Passover.
Passover again?
Really?
Yes.
What does that mean now?
Because they didn't supply the information.
So
I
it's
know,
still
but-
operational?
Right, that's what I'm asking, is it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I didn't-
quickly to pass over again?
Right, does that mean they shut down?
I think you should wait.
That might get them to respond.
Mr. Valiakonis is coming down the hallway. Sort of.
Backwards. Probably made it back for,
I'm sorry?
we could have probably made it back for the party.
Could have.
Come on, Greg. Let's have a conversation.
Good job, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Valiakonis, we're on item 9, Candlewood Lanes bowling alley license renewal. Mr.
Yes.
Fode noted that there's a note to pass over, so the board's looking for an explanation as to why. we're
Yes,
passing over
the
this.
license renews on May 1st, and I've sent a certified letter to the bowling alley indicating that their license has lapsed, and for them to fill out and return the appropriate paperwork. So we've had to resort, as we normally do, to sending out a certified letter when we don't hear back.
So they're operating now without being properly licensed?
Right, right.
So when did the letter go out to them?
I would have signed it last week.
Okay. And you said you sent it certified?
Yes. Yeah, that's the normal protocol, is when we don't hear back, or I don't hear back, based upon a regular letter going out, it's then is sent out by certified mail. The letter is strongly worded in terms of the fact that there needs to be appropriate action taken with regard to the license.
And that's not the first notice they received?
That's right.
It's probably like the third or fourth, right?
I don't know the exact number, but we're pretty diligent in terms of following up on people that don't want to renew their licenses, for whatever reason.
This is one of my biggest pet peeves, Mr. Chairman. I brought this up in past years. They're not going to get a vote from me. I'm going to be very clear on that right now, right up front. This is unacceptable. It's unnecessary, and this isn't the first time, so as I've done in the past, if it gets in front of us again, I'm not voting in favor of their license.
There isn't a meeting for 2 weeks, so what's the process at this point? Wait until the next meeting? Or is there some action that would be taken with regarding the operation of the business between now and the next meeting if they don't file the proper paperwork and pay the proper fee?
And in the past, what we've done is we've waited until the next meeting, and if the next meeting there's no action taken, then there's action taken at the meeting on the 19th. Whether it's revocation or asking council to write them a strongly worded letter, or indicating to them that the license will not be renewed until the manager and proprietor comes in and meets with the board. In the past, where people have refused to renew licenses, we've asked them to come in and explain those reasons before the board, and I think that that may be appropriate in this instance.
I think they should come in. I mean,
This license is for what? This is for the amusement machines and
No,
jukeboxes, or?
no.
No.
Actually,
bowling
for
alley.
operating the bowling alley, and it's one of those off-cycle licenses. I think there was a question at the meeting 2 weeks ago.
Right.
It doesn't renew until May 1st of every year.
So, there's a certain level of frustration in relation to them not meeting the deadlines. However, not renewing the license, that doesn't do us any good in relation to a business ceasing operation on Route 28 because they're in violation of something such as this. To me, I think we should send the building inspector down, and, rather than send a certified letter, but send the building inspector down, notify them that they're currently in violation and operating without a license, and suggest that they have 14 days to comply. And/or a show cause hearing will be had as to why the board should or should not renew their license. I don't want to see another vacant storefront on 28th. This has been a long-established business. It's been around as long as I have. Maybe not with its current owners, but Candlewood Lanes is, I remember as a young kid bowling there. So, they're being negligent, they're being stupid. I don't know that their stupidity has risen to the level where I'm not going to vote to renew their license. But they should be in compliance like everybody else. Certified letter is good. I think a visit from the building inspector is appropriate. And hopefully that stimulates them to come into compliance. So I wouldn't wait just for them to respond to the certified letter.
Okay.
Mr. DeColo's around. That's just my suggestion. I don't know what the other members of the board are, but he's around town, go down and knock on the door.
I think you may want to see the owner, the manager in here when they do, if and when they do submit their application for renewal. Require them to be here at the next meeting. Just
I can make that
ready to
happen.
go ahead.
I can make that happen, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we can vote right now to have a show cause hearing. Which we can, as we expect. We're trying to be business friendly, we're trying to encourage businesses to stay and grow.
No, I agree with you. It's frustrating though, and, and I'm not saying that your suggestion's not a good idea, but that's resources that Jim could be doing something else as opposed to going knocking on someone's door and, because they're not responding to requests for them to renew, do their due diligence and renew their license. But, yeah. God, I mean, they're gonna have to do it sooner or later,
You would think.
It's just,
Mr. Prisco?
No, my motivation behind the no vote is, I don't want them to get a unanimous approval for their license. I know it may sound silly, but it's at least some message to show them that they are accountable, and that at some point, it may go from a 4-1 to a 3-2, or incomplete, a 2-3. They just need to know this accountability, because we're doing all this extra work, and we have no way to recover all the extra money we're spending to get this one license done.
True.
That's my issue. Either we change our bylaw, or whatever it is that we use to execute this, so we can recover any extra efforts we have to go through. It should be part of their fees. If they're gonna require us to go above and beyond, when we're sending down Jim DeCola or our other people, then we should recover those costs. And it's the taxpayers' money here that they're wasting, because
Just
they don't want to do their
issue a cease
job.
and desist and shut them down. They'll be in here quickly enough. Really.
I'm fine, I'll second the motion, you make it, I have no problem. But I just wanted to explain my motivation why I'm saying why I'm not. I just don't want to get unanimous approval.
Okay.
I'm all for business, don't get me wrong.
I
but-
think you bring it to a head if you order them to be here at the next meeting. I think that accomplishes what we wanted to see accomplished. Submit the paperwork. Well, let's move forward.
Okay.
Thank you for letting me explain.
Okay. We'll pass over that item.
Move to pass over.
So just skip to item 11. We're going to postpone the vote on the ratification of the fire contract. And going back to item 10, June town meeting, vote FY 2015 budget.
Board members, I just wanted to hand out the appropriation projection that summarizes all of the dollars involved in the budget. Please disregard the copy that may have been included in your packet. We went through, and this is the updated version that shows the amounts that are included with the FY 2015 budget. So the budget that motion that's in your packet, labeled number 10, that does include the $8,825 that you discussed at the meeting a week ago. And the budget at this time is balanced to the dollar for a grand total of $59,414,881. That said, we'll need to specify a funding source for the $8,825. But again, we are balanced, and it does include the additional amount that was requested by the CPC also at the last meeting. The second page on the one that you have is correct. It's the first page that's not right.
Well, what's this one that you just handed out?
That's the only page you should have.
So this one should be gone.
You can throw it out. Matter of fact, both of those pages that you have that are stapled together are no good. Especially the first page. Especially the first page.
So we don't have a new first page?
No, because that first page that you have,
Okay, so this, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, so this is not right.
throw that out, Michael. What that is that's the page that goes inside the town meeting warrant. That's a work in progress, so if you try to match up numbers on those two sheets, the budget will not look right. So the budget amounts that are shown here are correct, and then if the board has any questions about revenues, both Liz and I are here, and we can address what your questions may be.
Mr. Prisco?
No, I only have one question, it's really related to fuel. Not trying to beat the dead horse, but I could have sworn we had an agreement that we weren't going to raise or make an increase on the fuel budget, and that we were going to try to work out something maybe through the finance committee where they could have an allotment of money in the event we have an overrun, but require some kind of an efficiency program. Or am I misunderstanding what was agreed on?
I thought the increase is going to be less than what was requested.
I think the number, maybe it was $5,000 less, or something like that. I think Mr. Messeri had made a
It's
recommendation.
about 5% increase. And that's based on cost
Primarily
of fuel, Greg?
Primarily cost, Bob.
per hourly cost.
Right.
It's not based on increased usage, it's based on
No, it's
increased cost.
based upon cost.
No, that's not true. Usage. It's got to be usage. In 1 year, we all saw the numbers, and just in 1 year, the increase was very significant. It was over 3,300 gallons. So this is that, in addition to the increase in gallonage, increase in cost, we also had reductions in other departments, and the cost still going up. So you take the savings from those departments that reduced, those are now used up by other departments that are going above their allotment. So as far as I'm concerned, we clearly have an issue with the fuel. It's just clear, 3,300 gallons in 1 year. The labor numbers, our labor numbers don't match up to somebody burning 3,300 gallons of fuel. It's just not there. I know you guys keep referring back to snow and ice, but it doesn't work for me. I think we have a clear problem, and that's one particular area. Another one I'd like to mention now, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is, we talked about the phones. And I know we can't do anything now, but if we could take the action to really dedicate the next year to figuring out what we're going to do with our cell phone service. I know Finance Committee, thank you for stepping up and having a willingness to look into it. But I think we owe them.
I have a question. I don't mean to interrupt, but where does that stand right now?
I'm meeting with Mr. Wilcox tomorrow afternoon to talk about possible plans. Unfortunately, he's the only one. I don't mean unfortunately, big city.
Abby, I can't hear you.
There's only one person in town that can talk to Verizon and try and find out what the deal would be with getting a townwide contract for cell phones. And that person is Mr. Thomas. So we're going to meet tomorrow to start talking about what some of the options are. And that's that. In the meantime,
Does Verizon only allow one?
each department can talk to them. Each department has one liaison that can talk to Verizon,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
But the head honcho that's above all of that is the town administrator.
Okay.
So rather than going and finding out who the liaison is, okay?
Okay.
So that's that story. In the meantime, the Finance Committee has eliminated all possible cell phones that we were able to in the budget.
And these numbers reflect that?
Yes.
Wait, I'm sorry. Do you have a copy of what we're looking at? I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, good. So they're reflected in the sheet that we're looking at. One more thing. And I did point out that in a few of the budgets, we have this travel expense, and we have individuals getting $700 a month for driving their own vehicles. I just think we're going in the wrong direction, and I really would like to see us address it. It may be too late for this fiscal year budget, but we have a year before we have to do this again, and I really would ask that we take as an action item and try to find a solution so we're not spending $700 a month to let people use their own car. I mean, you can lease.
There have been several discussions over the years about that. One of the ideas was to have a pool of cars at the DPW yard, and when you came into town, you went and you picked up your car and you went and did your thing. And this, it never really got a lot of support and didn't really go anywhere. The police department, I believe, up until quite recently, has been recycling used vehicles for the use of people that needed a department car where they didn't have to go 100 miles an hour or travel outside of town. So there have been various things that have been looked at. There hasn't been a lot of support for doing much about it. And to some degree, I understand that.
There's a couple of things. I think Mr. Valiakonis put together a very comprehensive list of all town-owned vehicles.
Right.
I think that's a start. And
I agree.
I also agree with Mr. Prisco in terms of the amounts that some individuals are getting for car expense or a car allowance, however you want to term it, is excessive.
Well, I think we also need to look at what I was the same thing with cell phones, depending on the reimbursement policy for cell phones. One person gets $9 a month, another person gets, a pot of gold. So obviously, one of the things that the town needs to work on, and the finance committee would be delighted to work on this with the town, is a policy of reimbursement. How do you establish that?
I think it's a terrific idea, because I think some of these amounts are just through the roof.
Yep, I don't have a problem
Make no
with that.
sense.
And we were told that there was a new car inventory, but we haven't seen it yet. I assume that tomorrow evening at our meeting we will.
Okay.
I'll give it to you at 1 o'clock tomorrow if you haven't seen it yet.
I know that we
Yeah,
were
I
supposed to
agree,
get it last week, and unfortunately, we didn't.
I just want it to be in the minutes.
You would have had it tonight.
There you
You
go.
had met.
See?
It's your fault.
No, it actually was somebody that didn't post.
But I'm glad to hear that those items will be looked at. Those are avenues to take a closer look at and scrutinize. Okay. Any questions regarding budget?
No, I have no more questions. I just want to state, though, I think it was a lot of effort on everybody's part to pull this together. I do appreciate it. I can definitely tell how much work went into this, especially Liz, you, and your staff. Thank you very much.
Unless there's anything else, Mr. Fode, with a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend a fiscal year 2015 operating budget in the following amounts as proposed by the town administrator. Fixed cost, $18,962,000 and $18,962,969. School, $26,764,015. Municipal, $13,687,897, for a total of $59,414,881.
Second. I have a motion to second. Any further discussion on the budget?
Yes,
Mr. Prisco.
I'd like to amend the motion to reduce the municipal budget by $10,000.
Municipal, what's, okay.
The fuel increase.
I'll second it for the purpose of discussion, just to be consistent.
Okay. More discussion?
Oh, I thought, it seemed like we had an agreement amongst the board, at least a majority, that we don't accept the fuel budget with this level of increase, and that we were going to try to create an efficiency program going forward. Even if we have to put the money with the finance committee and put it in their account in the event that we run into an issue, but I think we should try to force efficiency and try to create a new program. When we have a new town administrator, this should be one of the things we put it on his lap right out of the gate. And I don't want it to be in the budget, this extra money. I'd rather have him work for it and rather see an efficiency program generated, set across the department heads, and go from there. That's why I'm asking for the reduction of the $10,000 in the municipal budget.
Mr. Misery, I know you had proposed something, and we talked about this. I don't recall specifically what it was at
I
this
think,
point. All I know is that.
first of all, the difficult part of coming up with a budget is related to the cost of fuel, which varies. So, and I don't have the figures in front of me, but I don't know what our fuel consumption was last year and what's proposed this year. I don't have those numbers.
That's some of
Do
it.
we have them here?
I could tell you this, the rate per gallon went down from 2012 to 2013.
I'm interested in understanding what we use for fuel in gallonage, right? In
Every
the past
department
2
went down.
years. Do we have those numbers
We do.
in front of us?
And I can tell you, every department went down except for DPW. And DPW jumped from 2012 to 2013 by 3,300 gallons.
3,300 gallons, that's the number, okay, now I
A little
know
more
you
than
got
that,
the
but I
number.
rounded it off.
Okay,
That's 1 year, but I can do the 2 year, and the 2 year is even more than that.
okay, but was snow and ice included in that?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You gotta, I think you have to take the snow and ice out in order to make a measurement of, are they doing a better job of conserving
fuel or not.
But if you go and look at the labor numbers from year to year, they're pretty close. So something changed. I could be wrong. I mean, Liz, if you looked at the numbers, am I all wet on this one? Am I wrong? Am I barking up the wrong tree? I don't know if anyone else has looked at the numbers, but I have. And I really think you're gonna find that your labor numbers, when you compare them from year to year, are not way off. The only thing that sticks out is fuel. It sticks out like a big sore thumb.
If you take snow and ice out of it, and let's face it, snow and ice are not going around in Vespas. They're using huge gasoline-consuming trucks, okay? If you take the snow and ice portion out of it, what does it then do? Because I can see how if you were using big snowplows and big trucks more 1 year or 2 years than another, the labor's gonna stay the same. You're gonna have, well, no labor.
But if you look at the numbers that were provided, 5 years, all those numbers have snow and ice in them, right? So it's an apples and apples comparison. But-
Except that the snow and ice number's all over the place.
Well, I think it's compared.
Cost of fuel's up and down.
Hold on. Mr. Fode, you're probably better at this than any one of the five of us sitting here.
Snow and ice, as far as what you're saying, Michael, is apples to apples, but the problem is you don't know you have to look back at how many events they went out for, how much snow, even when you base it on inches per season, you may not be consistent, because they may have gone out for
Ice.
for ice events where they're just salting, which sometimes takes longer than plowing, depending on the conditions. If it's raining all throughout the night and the weather's below, 32 degrees. So I don't think you're off in as far as trying to keep control of it. I think there's a way there, when you're filling up, I mean, we hand out slips separately. The snow and ice slips are handed in separately, then, well, we don't do slips here, but you can have it where the machine, where the machine is, you're taking the gallons from the machine for the hours that you're fighting snow and ice storms. That isn't done now, is it, Greg, like that? They don't know, they can't segregate snow and ice from...
The only way we can do it is to actually do it by date and time,
Right.
so that when we have a snow event, we charge it to snow and ice. That's the only way to accurately do it. And there is an approximation, as you know.
Right.
Well, my motion's on the table, it's been seconded. It's up to you if you want to. I don't want to believe it anymore.
So at one point, you looked at this graph, and I know you came up with something, and you looked at this graph, I just don't recall. I just don't recall what it was. Because I do agree with Michael, I thought the consensus of the board at least was not to increase it to the extent that was recommended by DPW director.
What I was saying was that the baseline of this number of gallonage, right?
Which is, you're putting in 12,000?
Yeah, maybe you look at that as the no snow amount, meaning that if you're not doing snow and this is what you're gonna use, and then everything above it is a variable associated with the amount of snowfall, but I guess, if you wanted to get everybody thinking about it a little more and you reduce the budget by that amount, I wouldn't be too unhappy about it, as long as the money was put into the Finance Committee reserve fund, just in case.
It's a great
Because
idea.
I don't think we have enough information. I agree that we ought to look at ways of reducing fuel consumption, and I don't have any idea of what that means from the point of view of, especially in DPW, associated with the fact they have fairly large vehicles that get pretty poor mileage, and I gather when you're pushing snow, the truck mileage goes to hell in a handbasket. It's probably pretty low to start with. So there are probably better ways of approaching this, and we'll spend some time this coming year, put it as one of our our projects to assign to somebody to see if, in fact, we can make some improvements. So if the board is the majority, I guess, if there's a feeling to reduce that budget by the $10,000 or $11,000, as long as it goes into the Finance Committee reserve fund, I have no problem. Keeping in mind that we took $25,000 out of
Yeah, I know.
the reserve fund, otherwise I would say never mind, but keeping that in mind, I'd put the money there.
Okay. I think that's fair.
I strongly disagree. We're talking about a 5% increase overall in the entire budget as proposed. For all fuel, for all vehicles. And you're gonna take that whole 5% and do it away and expect one department to make up the difference. We've got an increase in fuel costs. I mean, I don't know if you filled up this week, and 2 weeks ago and 2 months ago. Substantial increase in prices of fuel. I know we have a contract right now, but it's still, anticipated that the cost of fuel is gonna continue to rise. We can't control Mother Nature. I think the DPW is being targeted here to absorb the entire $10,000 decrease. I don't think that's any way to manage a budget. You're talking about a $59 million budget. You're talking about a $207,000 proposal. 5% decrease across the board, arbitrary number picked out of the sky, out of the hat, just because some event which isn't adequately explained to some members. I think it's the wrong way to budget. I think it's a wrong way, a wrong message being sent, once again, by this board. I think the numbers that were put together are pretty thoughtful. And if we want to encourage our department heads, and specifically want the Department of Public Works to look at their usage and track it differently, go ahead. Encourage the conservation throughout the course of the next fiscal year, but don't leave yourself short. And again, putting it in the reserve fund for the Finance Committee is for unforeseen expenses. This isn't unforeseen. We need to put fuel in our trucks. We need to operate the sanders and the plows. We need to operate the police cars and the fire department. We need the building inspector to be able to drive around and inspect buildings. I think it's, again, I understand the point. I embrace the idea of conserving, but I don't think this is the appropriate methodology to do so at this, and again, it's been discussed ad nauseum. To me, I don't think there's any way to run a budget, particularly at the last minute here, again, try and pull $10,000 out over a $59 million budget. So I am not in support of the amendment.
It may be ad nauseam, but what I would say is it's not last minute. It's been raised since I'd say even before the budget hearings.
Right.
I think Mr. O'Leary, I let you speak. I believe we've been preaching conservation, and I don't think we've seen it. So I think that's what some of the frustration is in some of the fellow board members, and we just don't see it. I don't see DPW being targeted. I mean, this board made a decision a couple of years ago to consolidate the fuel.
It's a
To
reduction
consolidate
from
the
the
fuel
fuel.
budget under DPW.
All we've talked about
That's
is
where-
the increase in the rise in the DPW usage of fuel. They're not being targeted. Who else has been talked about?
Just look at their fuel consumption.
Right. That's what they consumed. That's what they consumed. They must have been driving around town for some purpose that wasn't related to, public safety. I have no idea. What do you think? What's the God?
The motivation is to create an efficiency program for all departments that use vehicles. This isn't singling out the DPW.
You
What
haven't
singles
mentioned
out-
one other department.
Mr. O'Leary, what singles out the DPW is the numbers. Read them. Spend some time with
read
them.
them.
The numbers tell
I've
the
looked
story.
at them.
The problem is you don't like the story.
No.
And so
The
I'm
thing is,
trying to
I
do the
accept-
right thing.
I accept
Mr.
there are
O'Leary.
other events.
Mr. O'Leary, I'm trying to do the right thing
I'm
and
sure.
bring out where there are efficiencies can be made. It's a very simple thing. It's called leadership, it's called
So you
management.
think?
Never mind, I'm wasting my voice.
Yes, you are.
All right, that's enough. We have a motion that was seconded for purposes of discussion.
Mr. Fode already seconded.
Madam?
Sorry.
On the motion, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion fails.
Oh,
2 to
I
3.
said aye.
Oh, I'm
is it?
sorry. I didn't even hear you. Motion carries 3 to 2. Misery.
I'd like to make a motion to, what did we cut out of the budget? What was the number?
10,000.
10,000.
10,000?
From the municipal.
I'd like to make a motion to increase the Finance Committee Reserve Fund from $100,000 to $110,000.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second.
I thought the original motion said to take the 10,000 out of the municipal budget and put it into the finance.
It did not.
No,
It did not.
mentioned
Sorry, I
that.
need to,
That came as part of the discussion.
all right, take that out then. Okay.
Mr. Fode's right, my original motion did say that. You can go back and maybe look at the tape, but I believe that's what my motion said.
I thought it was just a straight motion to reduce the,
And that
Fuel
the money be
budget.
placed into the Finance Committee.
well, I think we are on the side of caution.
But this is fine, yeah, this
Okay.
is
I'm gonna take
perfectly
it out.
fine.
So, and a second for Mr. Misery's motion. Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
What's left?
On to warrant article recommendations.
I think we only have the two, right, the capital and
Yeah, not many.
the others we postponed to town meeting.
This was one of them, the budget.
The budget and capital.
Capital.
Only two. We just voted the operating budget, so.
Yeah, so,
Mr. Valiakonis?
Capital?
no, Article 1, right? Oh, I'm sorry, Article... Where is it?
Mr.
Kelleher?
Mr. Chairman?
Could I ask for a clarification of what the vote was on the general services budget? The $13 million amount? Because it's not the number that's printed on the piece of paper that we have. I think maybe it doesn't include the 8825?
It does. The number that was voted by the board does include the 88.
And that's not what we're looking at here?
That's right, Don. Right. So the number that you see on that sheet
Yeah.
does not include the 8825, but the number that the board voted does.
Okay.
What sheet, Mr. Kelleher, which? That's the old sheet?
We were given,
That's the sheet he just handed out, is
Do we have
missing
extra
that
copy?
amount of numbers.
and the amount that you voted was not the printed $13,679,072 on this sheet. I don't know what you voted.
What was the vote, Mr. Kelleher?
$13,687,897, and then
Okay.
minus 10, so.
Okay, that's the amount printed on the sheet plus the 8825. We were just confused
Yes.
because it didn't match up. Okay.
Plus 10, plus 10.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Misery?
as I recall, we went through the warrant last week. We made our recommendations. We made recommendations or postponed recommendations to town meeting with the exception of Article 13 and Article 14. So I would make a motion on Article 13 that the board recommend, based on the fact that we voted the budget this evening.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second, for the purpose of discussion.
Second. Discussion.
Did,
Mr. O'Leary?
we can recommend it, but, we may end up tweaking it again between now and first week of June, as finance director's going, could be. If past history is a lesson, generally we do.
Okay.
So, Mr. generally it's on town meeting floor. I'm not opposed to
Making the recommendation. to town meeting?
recommendation,
Okay.
I think we should still make the recommendation to town meeting floor, but let the public know that preliminarily we're in support of what's in the warrant.
I don't anticipate any changes, but, you know,
Right.
there could be.
The legislature hasn't voted the budget yet.
You know,
Finance Committee?
If you can vote it in, if you have to vote it again, you vote it again, that's what we're gonna do. Because, you know,
Well, it actually gets what's printed in the warrant, so.
Right.
It gets distributed to everybody, so. So if there's a chance, I guess if there's a chance that it's gonna change, then I'll withdraw my motion, rather than create confusion in the warrant.
if that's the case, I'll be more than happy to withdraw my second.
Okay?
Get it done, Mark, but-
Well, we voted a budget just moments ago. So why would we vote in favor of that budget if we thought it may change?
Right.
Why wouldn't we just not even vote that?
No, other than at this point in time, this is where we're at, and it's balanced.
So then we could vote this article,
We can
and
do
recommend it. I think it would be an inconsistency.
Actually, we've been pretty consistent by waiting and just making the recommendation at town meeting. When we finally make a motion at town meeting with a final budget figure, that's what we do. You know.
There'll be,
And that's what we recommend.
there'll be a numbers handout anyway.
Right. And it should be substantially different than what we just voted tonight, but we don't know.
I think we probably should have voted that motion in. If that's the likelihood that it could change, then.
Boy, are we argumentative tonight.
No, I just think we're being inconsistent. We just 2 minutes ago, or 5 minutes ago, maybe 10 or 15, after fuel, adding 10, subtracting 10, whatever we do with that 10. And now we're coming to this article. We just approved the budget. And now we're saying we don't want to make the recommendation on this warrant article because it may change. Well, I just think it's showing some inconsistency, that's all.
Well, I think.
At the end of the day, does it
No, but,
matter?
you know,
Probably not, but.
The numbers aren't even in the warrant that goes out, I don't think. Are they gonna be printed?
The budget numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't go in the posted warrant, Bob, they go in the printed warrant, which gets sent out to
Yeah, well,
residents.
okay, so they will be in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. all right.
Sure. And we hope not to do a handout other than any explanatory materials, but we want to have everything nailed down in the budget book.
I say vote it.
You're gonna mail out the warrant on Friday, and that warrant will have a copy of the budget, is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So those are the numbers that they're getting. I think it'd be easier to vote and recommend this article.
Yeah.
They'll get those numbers, and then you get to town meeting, and if you have to make a change, you can explain the change versus, wait a second.
All right.
May
I'm not gonna withdraw my motion, so, there, let's go, let's move on.
Any further discussion?
No, it still stands, still stands.
No, he was only contingent on Bob wanting to, yeah.
Still stands.
Yeah. All right, so all in favor of the motion to recommend Article 13? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
And then the only other one I don't believe that we took any action on was Article 14.
Correct.
It was the one document I forgot to take with me, I think, this evening, as I grabbed my pile of stuff. I don't recall, we did 2 weeks ago.
I have it right here. We did not do anything. We didn't make any
No, but
recommendation.
We did get this presentation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't vote or say to recommend a town meeting or anything. There is no note yet.
Someone gonna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend a town meeting. I mean, recommend.
Now?
No.
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good, done. It's the last one we had to tackle this evening, is that correct?
Let's see.
Ask Greg if there's any-
What is it?
14, the one you just voted yes
Yeah,
on.
just voted yes on.
That's it.
Is that it, Mr. Valiakonis?
That's it.
The last one we had to vote?
That's it.
Brings us to town administrator's report.
Good evening. I've already updated the gas pipeline, so I won't get into any more details. On pending personnel actions, as you know, we have a requisition in for 2 patrolmen. The civil service list came out. The first list didn't have enough names on it of qualified candidates. I had to go ahead and requisition a second list. I've received that. We need 5 names for up to 2 vacancies in the department. The new list has come in. We'll have a suitable number of candidates to select 2 new police patrolmen. Again, that's based upon the budget being approved, which would create a dedicated school resource officer. And then what we anticipate is 1 upcoming retirement next fiscal year. So that process is tracking along okay, but we did get delayed by the fact that the first civil service list did not provide us with enough candidate names. And then also, as Chief Warnock had indicated to the board earlier this evening when he was in meeting, we're tracking well to hire a new firefighter, full-time paramedic, and get that person hired and get the recommendation into HRD by the end of this month. And that will ensure that that person will be available and be hired before the end of this fiscal year. So those are the 2 pending personnel actions. Cell tower bids are completed in. He had reported to the board that we went out to bid on 2 locations, Swan Pond Road and Tower Hill Road. There were 3 bids. Each of the locations is a 10-year lease. The estimated value of the lease to the town over the 10 years is between $240,000 and $350,000 per location. So they are not insignificant investments that the town makes. I've been approached by several residents about what the next step is. I will be making recommendations to the board, because you're the one who actually enters into leases, not me, at the 5/19 meeting. And then once that's done, the bidders need to go to the Community Planning Commission and request a special permit. So any residents with input into the process, it needs to be made at the stage where they go ahead and get their special permit through the CPC. I don't know if the board noted when it was looking at the legal bills that there was a significant amount of money invested in arbitration and legal cases. We had expended about $10,000 defending an action involving the police department and sick leave buyback. I'm happy to report that that case was won, so the town did win the arbitration case, and it clarified the issue related to annual sick leave buyback, a challenge that was put forth by the Teamsters Local 25. So it's not inexpensive to do that, but the town did prevail in that area. And along those lines, I had previously reported to the board that we will need to go forward in requesting a transfer of the Finance Committee to supplement the legal budget. In addition to that arbitration case, we've had 1 very costly lawsuit and special counsel services over the last several months, actually over this fiscal year. Those 3 cases alone total $31,600. So if you wonder how we expended our legal funds, the sick leave buyback arbitration for $10,000, a lawsuit that was filed against the town for $15,000, and then special counsel services for $6,600, bringing us to a total of $31,600 just on those cases. And I'm pleased to report that as part of the budget that you just adopted, that there's an additional amount of money that we did budget for legal services for next year, because we anticipated that we'd be short this year. So I believe we'll be in good shape, but as I've said to you in the past, the town is typically in the role of a defendant. We get sued, we get brought into these cases either by residents who challenge decisions or by unions who are unhappy with the decisions that management has made, and in each case we defend our actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valiakonis. Open new business. Mr. O'Leary?
Just, first matter is, I didn't know if the chair was going to bring the citizenry up to date as to the board's action that was taken Thursday night in relation to the TA. Okay, so I'll wait to comment there. The only other than that is vote tomorrow. There's an election tomorrow, and 1 contested race on the ballot to elect a new member to the Board of Selectmen. And with that, I'd like to thank Mr. Delaney for his service and 6 years on the board. I think you're coloring your hair a little bit, you know. I know you got a few gray hairs out of the deal, but again.
Just a couple.
Just a couple, yeah. But again, we appreciate your service on the board, and I hope you find some other hobby that you find enjoyable for your free time, and wish you the best of luck in whatever you choose to undertake.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Mr. Fode?
I guess we're all gonna sing your praises tonight, even though next week we might
Even though you
not-
don't need it?
Even though next week we might not be. I also, only has been a member for 2 years, but I want to thank Sean for the 6 years that he's committed to this town. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I know the time and effort you put into it and how seriously you took it, so. The good news for me, Sean, is I consider you a close friend, so we will be seeing each other in another life, if not here. So I wish you nothing but the best, and again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fode. Mr. Prisco?
I just want to first start off, Sean, by letting you know today that we are a grateful town for the 6 years of service for your dedication. During your time as a selectman, I watched you learn and to grow and to ultimately lead this board through some challenging and difficult times. And you did it with absolute confidence and sheer respect for the principles in which each of us were sworn in. Change has never been easy to accept for many in town, and even some on this board. But because of your knowledge and your solid judgment, you are a key factor in gaining constant support from the community and others on matters that we needed it most. You led this board during a time of profound change, and for that, you should be proud. So today, you should leave your position on this board with the highest level of pride, knowing that you leave us a better town now and into the future than when you arrived. I speak for all the families who entrusted you with their sons and daughters' futures when I say thank you for giving us so much of your soul and probably a few years off your life from the stress of supporting the much-needed high school and middle school projects, for leading us towards a unified strategic plan, for supporting the investments in tools and technologies so our town employees can continue to provide outstanding services more efficiently and affordable, and for working so hard to set up life-saving protocols and skills for our firefighters so they can provide advanced life support to our citizens, which has already saved lives in such a short period of time these services have been in place. And I know there's many more I can mention, but those are just a quick summary and highlight of some of the keys that will truly last along into the future. I also want to say a special word of appreciation to Mrs. Delaney and to your two children, Ryan and Hannah, for all their endurance of all the times when you could have been there, either with your wife or at one of your kids' sporting events. Instead, you elected to be here at Town Hall or at a meeting around town. I thank her. I want to thank your family for their sacrifice and your public service. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for your advice, counsel, and most importantly, your friendship over the years. On behalf of a lot of residents tonight, it asked me to pass along to you and from their children. They specifically said their children, this is a greater town because of you, and thank you, and we wish you Godspeed.
Mr. Prisco, thank you. Mr. Messeri?
I'm going to start by saying I'm sad to see you go. I understand that we all have our own priorities, and I think you brought to the board leadership, certainly a skill set that some of us didn't have, and I think over the past few years I've either been the chair or the vice chair, and you have been the chair or the vice chair, and we've worked closely together, and I appreciate that. We've been able to communicate, to work together, to resolve issues, and I think that's very important. And there's been a lot of accomplished, and as Mike said, you should be very, very proud of your accomplishments as you move on. Just another note, Sean serves as a member of the school building committee as a selectman appointment. He's going to leave that position, but I'm going to urge the board, after our reorganization, to schedule a meeting with the school committee to appoint Sean as a citizen representative on the building committee. In addition to, we'll have to decide on a board member to take the position he now holds, so that he can continue his work I think he has the knowledge. He's been one of the leaders in moving that school project forward, and I only think it's fair that he'll be allowed, if he wishes, to continue in that endeavor.
Did you ask him?
I did. So thank you, Sean. very
Can't make a
much.
clean break, huh?
Just couldn't get out completely. No, that school project is near and dear to my heart, I think, as everyone knows, so I do wish to remain very, very heavily involved in that project. Mr. Sherry, thank you. Thank you to all my board members for the kind words this evening. We may not have always agreed, and we've had some contentious hearings over the last 6 years, and we've disagreed quite a bit, but I think this board works exceptionally well together. The current makeup of the board, as well as prior board members that I worked with, Mr. Harris, Mr. Vino, and Mr. Yule, I think we all learn from one another. So the last 6 years, it wouldn't change my decision to initially run, nor my decision to seek re-election 3 years ago. I thank the community for its overwhelming support over the last 6 years. I wasn't alone, but we did accomplish a lot over the last 6 years. Michael, you hit on it. It's as we sit here, it's our families who really sacrifice. We go to meetings and get involved in various things that we do throughout the community, besides sitting here once every 2 months, and once, twice a month. It's really my wife and my kids who have really sacrificed quite a bit, and so I thank them as well. Glad I had the opportunity to give back to the community that my wife and I called home, starting in 1999. It's a fantastic community, and it's a great place to raise kids and to live and enjoy what North Reading has to offer. So I thank everyone, every board and committee that I've had an opportunity to work with, all the employees of town that I've got to know and work with as well. North Reading is a place that I love to call home, and I'm glad I was able to serve for 6 years. The times do change. It is a time to move on for me from this particular role, but as I stated earlier, the school project is near and dear to my heart, having been involved for the last probably 5 years now. And I do wish to see that through fruition, and it does look marvelous up on that hill, the progress that's accomplished on a daily basis up there. So I just conclude by thanking everyone. I'm not going too far. Some people may like that, some people may not like that, but I'll be around. In terms of what Mr. O'Leary had touched upon in his closing remarks, when we last met, at least publicly, that was televised, this board made a decision at that point to schedule tours and interviews with the two candidates, Mr. Durkin and Mr. Giliberto. We had an opportunity to tour the town with both candidates last Wednesday. I had an opportunity to spend time with both candidates. I commend the screening committee. We have two of the best qualified candidates we could possibly have in this town. Will be well served with whomever is chosen to be the next town administrator in the town of North Reading. But this board also voted 4-1 at the last time we met, at least televised, to conduct interviews and to select a town administrator. That was supposed to have occurred last Friday. However, as a result of, I'd say it's a cloud that was put upon that decision, as last week rolled around and the suspicion that circulated concerning that particular decision, I spoke to first Mr. Messeri and then to the other members that voted in favor of conducting those interviews. And it was my opinion that it would be a disservice to whomever were to be selected if we were to conduct those hearings, those interviews, and make a decision last Friday. I don't think that would have been in the best interest of either one of those candidates if they would come into this community under that sort of cloud that was out there. That I view the cloud was unsubstantiated, unsupported. So with that, I discussed with fellow board members that we should reconsider that decision and to be in the best interest of North Reading and to those two candidates, that those interviews and that selection be postponed until post-election. Although I believe that I would be the best out of myself, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Yule having sat here for 6 years, and make a decision concerning who would be best to serve this community as town administrator. It's not about one particular person on the board. It's about collectively the board itself, the town as a whole, and whoever would be selected to run this community going forward. So with that, last Thursday evening when we met, there was a motion to reconsider conducting those interviews last Friday. And as a result, this board, as you probably have heard by now, this board decided and voted unanimously to conduct those interviews soon after tomorrow's election. And that's what had occurred at our meeting last Thursday. Unfortunately, that wasn't set up to be televised, as it was supposed to be a working session to basically map out the interview process. So that's what had occurred at our meeting last Thursday. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you all.
Good luck.